Everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our webinar today on how to optimize your site for Cyber Month and beyond. My name is Lexi, and if you're new to our webinars, I am one of our event managers here at WP Engine, and I help lead our virtual events. If you're not new to our webinars, you've probably seen my face a time or two. We are going to change it up this month, and I am going to co-host this webinar with my colleague, Josh Daly, because we are going to take more of a marketing stance. We want to talk WordPress and we want to talk e-commerce, but more than that, we want to just focus on what trends we're seeing in e-commerce and the online industries. So with that being said, our agenda for today, we're going to go over introductions and then talk just briefly about current trends we are seeing in e-commerce. And then we will move on to the real stars of the show, which is this great panel to talk about e-commerce trends, what we're seeing, what we're doing, what we don't think works, what we think works, what industries differ. And then we will open it up for question and an answer to all of you. And then we will kind of end out the webinar. Few housekeeping things. This webinar is being recorded, so we will share that recording with you all post-event, as well as the transcript. So if we name drop any things or any references you guys want to go back to, you can view that in the transcript on our WP Engine page, and we will share the recording out likely later today. Introductions. Again, my name is Lexi. I'm one of our lead event managers here at WP Engine, and I would love to introduce my fellow hosts. Josh, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, definitely. Lexi, I'm so stoked to be here with you today, for sure. This is going to be a good time. And the chat that we had with our panelists ahead just got me really amped up about the knowledge they're going to be able to drop. So I am Josh Daly, Senior Product Marketing Manager for the e-commerce solution, and I spend a lot of time in the WooCommerce space. And just as we're coming up on this last 2 months of the year, know how important this season is for everyone's business, whether it's a setup that propels us into what's our roadmaps are like for the future, or for just closing out the year strong. So yeah, let's just go into it because I think that's the critical part here. But before we do that, we just wanted to take a second to have a shameless plug about the e-commerce solution. And this is not going to be a big sales pitch time for us, but did want to call out our e-commerce solution and the way that we're helping to make Woo run better for you. If you get onto our e-commerce plans, we have special solutions for performance optimization through EverCache and LiveCart. And then probably the most exciting newest release that we have is we did expand our Stripe Connect integration with additional payment solutions in Europe in particular, and then also buy now, pay later, which we've seen some stores see a 20 to 30% increase when they have a buy now, pay later option. So that's exciting. But enough about our product, because I think we've got a lot of good stuff to get into here. So we'll just be able to dive into that now.
Totally. Yeah. So I'm going to kick us off and just talk about Cyber Month, Cyber Week, Black Friday in general. Just some stats. I've been talking with marketers on our team, and I've been talking with this panel. But what does this month mean? Why are we here? And kind of things like that. So it is cyber season. We wanted to do this November 1st, but we're here November 2nd. And last holiday season, the e-commerce market generated roughly $211 billion in revenue. So we know people are going to spend money. We know there's a lot to spend money on. And shoppers on average will probably spend roughly $325 on goods and things online over the Thanksgiving period. So that period between kind of Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday. And over 80% of people believe that they will partake in online Cyber Monday and Black Friday events. And then just an interesting stat I wanted to pull as we talk with this panel, but 70% of Cyber Week sales now are coming from your smartphone. So we're going to talk about digital strategy and how you're kind of like marketing your site, but mobile phones are here and obviously here to stay. Josh and I were talking about this, and I recently went to the Apple store. I needed a new computer. My old old computer had died, and I was talking to the Apple Store employees, and they were like, yeah, people aren't really buying laptops for personal use anymore. A lot of people are using iPads and mobile phones. So this is going to be huge when you talk about your digital strategy. But we know the current state of the economy. Inflation is high, prices are high on goods, and also just like groceries and things. So we expect to see this year that people are shopping for a good deal. There is a lot of price tracking going on. How can I get the best deal? And retailers are competing to have the best deal. So I'm going to just introduce some trends here, and we are going to then open it up to the panel to talk about some of these trends. But what are we seeing in 2023? I am buying things online. Josh is buying things online. And these are just a couple of the trends that are really, really big this year, and I would expect them to continue. One of those being social commerce. You used to see like a lot of digital and like comic ads and not real people. We are really seeing the resurgence of people in ad campaigns coming back. In addition to that, kind of like down on the bottom, but influencer marketing, influencers and personas are really marketing products, and they are selling products. The second kind of trend and something that I think is interesting is voice search. So being able to have your platform or your e-commerce store adapt to voice search. People are using talk to text on their phone, but they're also using products like Alexa and Google Home. Hopefully mine doesn't go off right now, to order things. This is a trend that we are really just starting the surface on, but artificial intelligence. You are going to continue to see this in WordPress, in every industry, in our lives. That is artificial intelligence. So chatbots on your site, content marketing and using AI to produce SEO results, things like that. I think it is here and here to stay. Next, omnichannel marketing. This is really related to the mobile phone aspect, but how are you converting your marketing strategy across multiple channels, whether that's desktop, mobile, iPad, but also like different platforms, paid media, things like that. That's kind of omnichannel marketing, and all of the places that you're marketing your e-commerce store are going to be very important. Influencers, I touched on. There's a lot to say about influencers. They're making a lot more money than I am, but they are selling a lot of things online and people are buying that. I also think influencers have a interesting perspective because obviously we know they are on these social media apps and platforms, but you can now buy things directly in Instagram, directly on Facebook without even going to an actual site. So I think that's inherently related to the omnichannel marketing. And then lastly, SEO intent. We have several people on this call that know a lot more about SEO, search engine optimization, than I do. And how is that changing? And how has that changed really in the last 12 months? And what do we expect is going to come from that? So you've heard like 5 minutes of me speaking. That's enough of me. I am going to introduce this amazing panel. And instead of just introducing yourself, which I would love for you to do, please tell us who you are, where you work and what you do there. But then can you also tell us like a fun story or a fun fact or something that's happened to you in the e-commerce space that people might learn from? I'm going to start with James. James, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Lexi and Josh. So my name's James. I'm based in the UK. I've been agency side for 18 years and I'm the CTO at Strategic. We're a fully integrated full service marketing agency. My background personally, I used to be a developer and I work on a lot of strategy and in particular a lot of e-commerce clients. Our agency works with a whole variety of e-commerce brands. A lot of them are B2C and also direct to consumer. And just to give a little bit of a flavor, we've got international brands as well as brands here in the UK, brands operating in Europe, including an extreme weather cycling and running brand, hardware flooring, luxury furniture, luxury experiences, right the way through to a brand we work with in London that sell street art from Banksy. So a real great mix of things, and hoping today I can share some perspective from over here in Europe, because there's a lot of parallels, I think, with what we're seeing with global brands. Fun fact, I put it in the chat a moment ago, but I actually live in Rugby, which is where the game of rugby was supposedly founded and invented. I I'm trying to remember what my funny story was from e-commerce, but I'll pass over to the next panelist while I remember it, because I had a really good one, but it's escaping me now.
Yeah, we'll circle it back there. Perfect. I'm going to move it on just alphabetical, but Max, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. Max Damaris, Director of Strategy at Vital Design. Vital Design is a full-service digital marketing agency. We basically build websites and brands and transition those websites and brands into digital marketing retainers where we're meant to drive traffic, drive leads, drive revenue. I've got a background in technical SEO, then transitioned to paid advertising online, and now sit in kind of a holistic digital marketing strategy position at Vital, as well as I help manage our SEO department, our paid advertising department, and our overall digital strategy department. We've got clients all over the US, all over the world, of all different sizes. We do a lot of B2B marketing, and we do some B2C marketing. And a lot of my B2C e-commerce clients are also, interestingly enough, both B2C and B2B. So I have some expertise in that area as well. And then I run an outdoors website on the side by myself. Some fun facts with e-commerce. I don't know about fun, but one thing that I've noticed recently with a lot of our clients is the extreme importance to add a personal touch to the selling process, especially when people can buy alternative products or the same products in store. So we've had a lot of success with our clients enabling customers to speak to sales representatives or have consultations or chat with someone live to help with e-commerce transactions. And this is especially the case with some of the higher value e-commerce transactions as opposed to lower value products.
Amazing. Yeah. You've definitely got interesting background and industries you work in. So excited to dig in. And then last but not least, Jennifer, would love to hear who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Lexi, and thanks everyone. I'm so excited to be part of such a great panel. So I'm Jennifer Jean, I'm founder and president of Technology Therapy Group. We're a full service digital marketing agency, but what makes us a little different is that we teach everything that we do. So from website development and Shopify trainings all the way to meta ads training, which we just did 2 weeks ago. And so we also work a lot with direct to consumer brands and stores. So we do work very much with not only local businesses, but driving traffic online and local. And to build on that with the story, I don't know if enough people know this, but mostly 80% of people like to buy within 20 miles of their home, which I think is really an important thing to keep in mind, because when we're marketing in the US, people still prefer to shop in store. But one of the biggest things that they do digitally is to discover if you have products in stock to shop in store. So I do want us to be thinking about, when we think about e-commerce, there is shopping online, but there is also browsing to buy online or in person. And I think that's an important thing we always have to think about when we're talking about e-commerce.
Totally. Thank you. Josh, I think I'm going to hand it to you.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And maybe I'll kick this one to Jennifer to start with. We'll go back in the reverse order. But, what are some of the lessons that you've learned over the years with all of the experience you've had in different seasons and cycles of this stuff, and maybe even with the economy the way that it is right now, things that people can be looking out for this holiday season?
So first off, I love the things that Lexi brought up at the very beginning. We really do want to remind people that our phones are really a big part of how we shop. And we don't just shop on our phones. We literally, I don't know if any of you have seen this, but we have this happen all the time, right? People are in a store and they're on their phone because they're comparing prices. So within the luxury market, we hear this all the time. I don't know if I should put prices up. Put them up. There's, if not, you're not going to have the sales. And I think we've seen a lot of changeover to that. Another thing about mobile, I always explain to people is to make sure that you're understanding that people are doing this in their homes too, because most of the time we are shopping more and more on the phone. And so some of the user experience things we really should be paying attention to are going to be keeping in mind like the things that get in what they call that safe thumb zone, right? And I jokingly posted this on LinkedIn. I'm like, remember, not everybody has big hands. Which is a fun thing. And, you know, a couple of things that I think are really important, and I know we're going to talk, and I'm sure my colleagues here can chime in, but sense of scale is something that I find so many people undervalue when they're putting up product photos. I mean, yes, a car, we all know how big a car is, but if you sell anything from a t-shirt to jewelry, anything, a backpack, you know, we have no sense of scale as humans. Don't put it next to a quarter, put it on a person. And I love that. That's the one place AI is not going to be good for me, is I want real people with the product in use and really seeing it. And I think that has been something I've been on a soapbox about for years. So I think that's really important that we be talking about that, because when so many brands or businesses start their websites, they get pictures from other people. And so this is like one of those things that I feel like is a big reason why businesses fail to sell well online, is sense of scale.
Totally. And I also think we will see AI emerge in that market. And I think Target is doing it right now, and some other places. Like, visualize this in your home and you can literally like picture a cabinet. I don't think it's quite there, but I think we will get it to go there. I'd love to punt the same question over to you, James. Obviously, being in the UK, shopping season can be the same and different, but anything you're seeing kind of on your side of things that you've learned from or that you're looking forward to this year?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I would completely agree with Jennifer's point on images. You know, we've just started doing some consulting for a furniture brand, and they lead all of their inventory imagery with this sort of white studio background shot. It gives you no ability to see the scale and how those items sit in the home. And unbelievably, they have this incredible photography that goes with it that shows all of their products in a fully dressed room. You have to go onto the product page and then activate a hover effect to see that. And that's the image I want to see. The original user interface was clearly designed by a designer that wanted it to look great, more form over function. So, you know, it's incredibly important. Yes, we've also got brands that are starting to use augmented reality. With the flooring brand that I mentioned, factorydirectflooring.co.uk, they have the ability to visualize your selected floor in their room, and that's had a huge uptake. And we're noticing, because of how we're tracking data for use of images, for use of augmented reality, that it is directly correlating with increases in conversion rate. But some of the things that I can also share to add to that, you know, I completely agree with Josh's point earlier, particularly with the economy, the ability to buy now, pay later. We've recently this year rolled out Klarna. It's pretty big here in the UK, but also PayPal's Pay with 3. And again, everything we're doing, we have hypotheses with our clients that we implement, and then we look at the data to actually demonstrate the impact and performance. So, you know, I think whereby every 100 people that were using PayPal to check out on the flooring website, we noticed that a huge 40% were actually then opting to do Pay with 3 from the day that we launched that, which was an incredible observation. So there's a lot of other brands that aren't using this that we're talking to at the moment to ensure that those flexibility with payment options are there. And, you know, and I don't think luxury brands need to, you know, sort of scoff at the prospect of that either. I've seen quite a lot of big luxury brands also offering those payment plans, because yes, the ideal client that they want to maybe associate themselves with, maybe they don't need to be able to pay later, but for everybody to have access to it, that's a big thing that I've seen, you know, working really well this year. And then, I mean, I've got a whole bunch of these, but I'll just sort of throw in one more, Lexi, to your point, which is customers are genuinely looking for a good offer, a good promotion, particularly this time of year. I personally, I've got my eye on emails, you know, so, you know, buying makeup for my wife for Christmas, I'm waiting for that Bobbi Brown 25% offer because I know it's going to hit at some point, and I'll wait for it. You know, I've got no shame in waiting to get that, you know, that sort of £10 off the order. And I think customers are being trained to look for those offers, look for those promotions. They know when brands are going to be there. And we've worked with a few brands at the minute that they are slipping into that cadence of having regular promotion cycles that are very, very effective. So I kind of naturally drawn and focused around those three areas. But I hadn't really thought about it until Jennifer just mentioned it. But that visual merchandising through imagery is incredibly important, and something that I think we take for granted that we really push with our clients. I'll pause because I could just keep going otherwise, but there might be some others I can weave in later.
Right on. Well, thanks for that. That's some great facts there, insights, and I appreciate. Let's talk a little bit about SEO. I think, Max, you have a lot of experience in that space. How are you approaching SEO in maybe the last 12 to 18 months with the iteration on different things like maybe the emerging technologies of AI and different things like that? But how are you approaching SEO right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And to be honest, like, we're approaching SEO in the same foundational way as we were 12 to 18 months ago, meaning we're still conducting tons of keyword research. We're still breaking down topics by the intent of how people are searching online. And we're still creating high quality content that's optimized to rank for those terms and things like that. The foundational side of SEO has kind of stayed the same. What has really changed in the last 12 to 18 months is like finding a way to position our clients as the foremost expert in their particular industry or topic, and finding new ways to try and do that. Some examples of this that are very simple examples, but like updating their biographies, leveraging authors in different spaces that have expertise in this area, whether you can, interview a PhD in this particular topic or someone else of an expert in this particular industry, updating company pages and about pages and team pages and things like this that just establish more trust and position this client as an expert in this particular, individual space. And then a lot more offsite stuff than we did previously in the last couple of years, in the last, I guess, decade even, making sure that we can get our clients and our clients' company or our clients' personas or team on podcasts, on other websites, writing content on other websites, basically doing everything that we can to position them as an expert or authority in their particular topics. Because what we're noticing is, when someone has an authority in a particular space, they're much more likely to rank in for the keywords around those topics. And when we're kind of not showing off those trust building and an expertise building and authority building things across the web, we are finding it much harder to rank in search engines and drive traffic, or potentially with the latest algorithm updates that have rolled out in the past few months, seeing pretty substantial declines across a whole bunch of industries that aren't taking this off-site authority-based approach.
That is an interesting thing, and one follow-up question to that would be, have you seen, as somebody that's like tracking SEO rankings and that kind of stuff, of volatility taking place that's different than before, or is it the same? How's the algorithm looking?
Yeah, well, I guess if you talk to any SEO, they're going to tell you the last 2 years have been the craziest years in SEO history. It's been extremely volatile. I think probably the biggest call out and difference in some of the volatility that we've seen literally in the last 60 days, about mid-September, Google kind of rolled out site-wide changes that affected an entire website as opposed to individual pages. So your whole site can kind of be deemed as including tons of helpful content, or your whole site can be deemed as maybe more spammy or less helpful. And we see rankings and traffic drops across all your pages on your site as opposed to individual pages, or increases across all the pages as opposed to individual pages. And this is kind of a difference compared to a lot of the way Google has been working in the last couple years, where a lot of the changes cause individual pages to move up or down. And this, like, more recently is about your overall site authority in a particular space. And that's something that's been really fascinating, and it's going to be an interesting problem to solve for many organizations moving forward.
Totally. And I just want to add, we've done a couple webinars on SEO. We know this is a topic, and I think even Max, we were talking about this earlier, but we have seen such huge changes in SEO and Google search in the last year, if that's any indication of where things are headed. And that can really impact a business or a small business that's selling a good. I want to kind of punt that question over to you, James. Different industries and ranking, obviously, we know it's very important to get your item, your e-commerce site, to rank at the top. Do you have any like strategies or recommendations that you give to clients in that SEO space?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole variety of things, and I don't want to use the SEO response of "it depends" to try and be really sort of specific. What we've been doing over the last, particularly this year, is just sort of trying to de-optimize and really focus. We have a lot of brands that come to us with very over-optimized websites. You know, you've only here in the UK got to do a Google search for mattresses, and you'll see that all the people competing on page one have a Wikipedia style page of content below the product grid, because they're all thinking, well, everyone else has got it, so therefore I need to have that amount of content. What we've seen great results on is really just simplifying and boiling down those pages to match the intent of the user. So getting products really kind of high above the fold, even on mobile. You don't need that big block of text at the top to tell you what a pair of football trainers are. You know what they are. So if there's a little bit of detail at the bottom about how we've got waterproof ones and unisex ones or whatever, great, that can be there. But we've seen an over reliance on stuffing SEO, and what we've had great results with our clients is just really stripping it back, particularly for brands optimizing for their own brand terms. It's been really clear with distinct keywords in page titles and headings on the page. They're still very kind of key areas for us. But ultimately not trying too hard. The structure of an e-commerce site around the PLPs, the product landing pages, the category pages, getting that infrastructure correct is kind of a key area, because in my experience, the product pages, the PDPs tend to take care of themselves if they're well optimized, because they're very distinct for what they are. For all of our clients, their growth, to take away from those really long tail product searches or their brand searches, that sweet spot in the middle of generic tends to hinge on the quality of the SEO, the keyword research, and how that kind of infrastructure of categories is put together. So that's where we typically tend to look with new clients and tend to refine our existing clients to get the best results.
It's a great call. I just wanted to piggyback of that if possible.
Yeah, go for it.
Me too.
Yeah, one of the things, user experience is extremely important on these pages, and understanding how people are leveraging your product pages, your category pages, or whatever pages on your site. One of the things that we're doing extremely heavily that's been impactful for our clients and us individually is just setting up tools to understand how people are behaving on the site. So we pretty much are always setting up session recordings via tools like Hotjar or Crazy Egg, so that we can literally watch people use the website, figure out the things that they're not finding, where they're having like user experience issues on the site, things like this. And then other tips that we always do is if you have chat, like read the chat transcripts. If you have search on your website, read all the search analytics from that. If you have phone calls coming in, listen to those recordings, and you start to learn really quickly the common questions that your website visitors have, the common issues they're having with your website, the types of empathy points that you may be missing upon your website, and maybe even issues that even in your own testing you can't find on your website. So like using recording tools and things like that can be really impactful to improve user experience and find things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And that's been big for us in the last 6 months. Longer than that, but.
Cool, I'm muted. Jennifer, I'll let you. I made the rookie mistake that I probably told you all not to make.
I think what you're also referring to, Max, is we often refer to those as friction points, right? The things that keep someone from pushing that add to cart button. So I love that you brought those up. And I know I even asked Lexi to make sure we talked about data. So since you've already started it, I'm going to build on that, which right now is actually the best time to put some of these tools on your site, because you're never going to be able to fix everything between now and the end of the year. But if this is the busiest time of year, you could actually take a review in January and figure out how to make it better for that next season. So do everything you can, but also keep in mind that you don't want to do everything at once. I think one of the biggest things that we see happen is that people try and fix everything, and you really do need to do this very systematically, very much like we all learned in science class, is, do one thing and see if it impacts it and keep track of it. It becomes that very much like that hypothesis testing components. And the other point I wanted to make about SEO, which was really about, I really want people to remember the power of their own story. Your story is so important, and it's usually what makes you different, and why people buy is the why behind your business. So I know James mentioned a mattress, but like, I fell in love with purple because they were fun and playful, and we discovered them on social. And make sure that persona of your own brand is translated back into your website, because the brands that are most successful, who've grown in social, they have that same personality on their website, and they keep the personality and the tonality in their copy. And your product detail pages are such an opportunity. Yes, we want the high click items at the top, right? But don't hesitate to put like a little bit more storytelling and usage and things like that below, because people who are interested will dig in. And then per, Max's point, if you have these screen recordings, you'll be able to see how much that impacts people reviewing it, but then also how many of those people have actually added to cart.
That's fantastic stuff. Jennifer, I want to stay with you for a second on this conversation, because you talked a little bit about data there, but how do you use this time as, let's say, a building block for rolling into next year, and not the end all of like, if I don't succeed right now, the business is over, and using these moments as a way to think strategically into the future? Because I know if we haven't made decisions yet, it's a little late in the game right now. So looking past November, December.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that I find to be so important right now is we're in a AI world, even with advertisers. So we have to remember that. Second is, anyone who has Google Analytics knows that you have GA4, which if you didn't put it on your site a year ago, you're now lacking year-over-year data. So you now have to start fresh with new data. And I think that's important, because remember, Google's Universal Analytics did not track things the same way that Google Analytics 4, or GA4, as you hear it coined often. So there's also this multi-attribution, which means basically, if you set up your analytics properly, not only can you use tools that were mentioned by Max, but in there you should be able to see the multi-touch points that people have come in. So right now, that foundation is so important. And what I would recommend right now is to make sure that the structure is strong through the holiday, and make sure everything is properly connected to your partners. Your Google ad account really grows off of that conversion tracking from analytics. Don't forget about your pixels with Meta, your pixels with Pinterest, so that you can have that data, so that you can then learn and apply those learnings forward. And then looking back, you'll be able to start, doing some more predictive analysis, which is what, there's another version of AI coming, is generative, right? But then you can start to use all this data in the new year for predictions.
Totally. And I kind of want to take that as like, if we bring this back to WordPress, like, you should have your site set up, you should be ready, you should have done your load tests, things like that. James, I'm gonna hand this question to you, but as someone that manages, as an agency that manages tons of sites, WordPress and not, what is your backup plan? What are you doing for this next month to gear up for lots of visits that someone can maybe prep for now if they haven't already? And we know like sites going down is a major issue. We talked about this in our kickoff call, but I noticed Sephora's site was down for roughly 40 hours. That's big. That's impacting sales. Like how are you prepping your team to be able to handle potential emergencies and things like that? And sorry, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
How about that?
Yeah.
I've got a little speaker, and usually I can unmute off that, but it didn't work. But here we go. As long as it's working now. It's a really important point, and we've got some clients on the WP Engine e-commerce offering. The ability to scale up with that platform is essential. It sounds like that was a pre-planned plug. It's not. It's a really key point. And of course, we have clients that are using BigCommerce, Magento, other platforms. That resilience, that ability to have the ability to scale up if there is something that's unexpected in demand. We have monitoring set up, so our development team have downtime monitoring, and we get pinged in a Slack group if a website returns a critical error, and that prompts our team to go and investigate it. But I can't emphasize enough as well, particularly from an SEO perspective, how bad downtime can be. There was a competitor to one of our clients whose website went offline. Our theory is that they had a security issue, and they were down for 7 days. So they've lost 7 days of trading. They managed to get up a logo and a little statement. But again, I don't want to name names, but if when we're looking at this brand in Systrix, which is an SEO visibility tool, they haven't fully recovered 3 weeks after bringing their website back online. They've lost about half of their SEO visibility because they weren't returning the right what's called a 503 temporarily unavailable response code. So if you do have downtime, if you're rolling out an upgrade, it's important to have a sort of quick response, having what's called a 503 status to tell Google, we'll be right back. That's part of the contingency planning. But uptime monitoring, really important, and having a sort of scalable server, so that if there's a huge boom in traffic, let's just say you're on television, someone's promoting your brand, and all of a sudden traffic spikes or something, you've got to be with a hosting partner that's prepared to help you scale through that process.
And I would just add to that, aside from just downtime, it's also important to be periodically checking your speed, because sometimes these servers can get loaded because you have a ton of extra people on your site, or there's way more people on the e-commerce portion of your site, or anything like that can slow down your load times pretty substantially. So making sure that you're running tests periodically you might need to scale up even if things aren't going down, just because things are going substantially slower. And I think we've all heard, about how much conversion loss you can have by having a slow site, especially if you're having people on mobile devices that are, not connected to Wi-Fi, and they're searching on the road, whether it's a 3G or 4G type connection. There's no way that they're going to convert if your site's loading too slow. So always be prepared to look at both downtime as well as site speed issues that may occur if you're not scaling appropriately.
I think that's a great. Oh, sorry, Jennifer, go on.
That's okay. I think both of you might want to even chime in a little bit more on this too, because one thing that I find is we get clients who will often ask us, well, what do I do if I sell out a product? Do I take it down or do I leave it up? And, I know as a consumer, I'm really frustrated when I run down someone's scan and everything is sold out. Like I'll leave. I won't even bother. So, if you're going to remove things, I think part of your planning also needs to remember that as you take things down, you have to point or redirect items so that if it is in an ad that you forgot was on, because we're human, right? We're not all as organized as we'd like to be. I'd like to say we're really meticulous, but we're going to forget something that you don't have it going to that oops page. And it's a silly little thing, but again, you spend so much money and you're competing at this time of year. Those small little things are that big difference between, converting and losing them for good. Hence, some of the other comments.
Completely agree, Jennifer. I mean, sorry, Max. I'll keep going. It's a really key point that you raised, Jennifer, because for me, if a product's out of stock and it may be coming back, it's out of stock and we're expecting stock back soon. You don't want to lose the visibility for that page. If it's out of stock and it's not coming back, you can say as such, but you can also show similar recommended products. Or sure, you can close it down and 301 redirect it to another suitable product. This is a very real thing. It happens a lot. It happens with very big brands. I saw an instance of this just last week in the UK. So, in the UK, we have, I think, just one astronaut that's been to the space station, Tim Peake. He's kind of a big deal over here. He's just brought out his new book called Space, and they were offering signed editions of this book. And it's just a personal story, this one. I shared a copy of the link where you can buy this book to my partner. And then I could tell she was trying to work out where to buy it from. But the big, huge UK book retailer had simply sold out. So they just deleted the page. They didn't redirect it to the non-signed version or even the space category. They just completely killed it. And then if you think of all the links that point to that page that are then redundant from an SEO perspective, but the user experience, it sounds crazy when you know how important it is, but so many e-commerce brands don't have an out of stock strategy for user experience, for SEO. It's a really key area that often gets overlooked at this busy time of the year.
Absolutely. I would go a step further, and I would say you should never take down a product. I've seen literally dozens of examples where all you need to do is keep that product page up, explain it's out of stock, and you can do some fancy things like show the most closely related next product, or even better yet, ask people to provide their email address so that we can tell you when it gets back in stock, and suddenly you can get a whole bunch of leads in that direction there. Some of the even products that are sunset forever, we've seen some that especially if they're products that are well known and have brand awareness, like people are searching for them online. If you remove that page, you're never going to find it again, and it represents an opportunity that someone else is going to take advantage of. If people are searching for a product that you used to offer or that used to exist, you likely have an alternative, and you should take advantage of the people that are searching that way. So I would always say keep a product page up no matter what. Add an email address for when it goes back in stock, and if it's never going back in stock, make sure you highlight the most appropriate related products. There's been big wins for our clients in that space many times.
Yeah, I saw a recent stat that Amazon's product recommendations are actually generating 35% of their revenue. So not necessarily sold out items, but 35% of their revenue is coming from, hey, you might like this, or things like that. So that's a little crazy. I want to bring it back to kind of our strategy in Cyber Month. I know all of you kind of work across different industries, and your strategy might be a little bit different, and discounting matters. But can we talk about acquisition of new and repeat clients? So I'm a potential prospect. How are you then taking the next step with these customers to make sure they come back to your site? And Jennifer, I'll start with you.
Thank you. So a couple of things I think are really important that we understand is every brand at this point is doing something from an acquisition with a percentage off. Even high-end luxury brands, they're not doing it because they're trying to cheapen their brand. They're doing it because they want your data. Once you opt in to these sign-up forms, remember, you've basically said you are okay with being tracked. And so I do think that's one of the things that you have to keep in mind. And I'm okay with that as a consumer. One, if I want the discount, but two, then that's where those nurturing programs come in, where you can then start to do setting up of browse abandonment emails or abandoned cart emails, but also taking it not in just the email side of it, but do remember to make sure you're leveraging your pixels and doing very much more dynamic advertising. So, you're getting the product seen in that person's Instagram feed, in their Pinterest feed, of the exact one that they were interested in. And, add in those little additional mentions about, they're going to be out of stock or things along those lines, so that you can, FOMO, right? We all say fear of missing out, but at this time of year, it is more realistic because in stock, things go out of quickly. So I do think it's important that you be thinking about that from the acquisition in, capture, and then also the leaving of the site, and continuing to nurture them not only through emails but other digital platforms.
Yeah, I would add from an acquisition standpoint that especially from an e-commerce space, people often get stuck on e-commerce transactions only as the way to acquire. And there's such an opportunity that's still missed by tons of brands, even though there's thousands of brands doing this. But just go a step higher in the buyer's journey, one step or two steps higher. Produce content that helps them make a decision on the best product. Give them a buyer's guide in the form of an ebook. Instead of going for that buy now term that you're bidding on in Google or that you're trying to rank for, go a little higher up in the funnel, try to rank for something organically, or run even potentially much lower cost per click ads on keywords that are higher up in the buyer's funnel. Offer an ebook or a buyer's guide or something along those lines to help them make decisions. And suddenly you're capturing email addresses from the ideal target audience that have buyer intent. Even though they aren't necessarily purchasing right now, they're in that decision-making phase and considering options. And this is particularly helpful for any high-value product. Think, I don't know, like mountain bikes as an example, something where you're talking multiple thousands of dollars. People, this buyer's journey is substantially longer than, a water bottle that you might buy online. And these types of situations really important to go up in the buyer's journey because you can differentiate and beat your competition in ways that, they're forgetting about.
Totally. We got kind of a question that I'm going to take into a couple pieces. And James, I'm going to direct this to you as you have a little bit of international experience. But shipping costs, obviously, we know shipping costs a lot right now. And shipping costs can deter customers. So like I want to buy a shirt online and it's going to be $12 to ship it. Like that impacts my decision. Do you make any recommendations to brands or retailers on shipping? And how are you mitigating the current landscape of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Shipping impacts everybody. Firstly, I'd say that we've had some great success over the last 12 months with two clients actually bringing a digital product to the forefront of e-commerce, digital experience codes that don't require shipping. You've got instant fulfillment, and we've seen record sales on Christmas morning, believe it or not, with people writing down redemption codes in Christmas cards as they head out to go and see family. But yeah, I mean, shipping is a very real thing. We, I think I've mentioned, work with a hardwood flooring supplier, and these pallets of flooring packs weigh a lot. And we were doing some analysis within their checkout funnel just over the last year because they've massively uplifted their shipping costs. And that has had a consequence on conversion because customers are shopping around and they're a little bit, sort of stumped and put off when they see a, $30, $40 equivalent shipping charge that's brought in when it's not really been made very clear early on. So we're advising to be upfront with shipping. So we have little USPs below the navigation. We have it on the product pages to make sure that it's clear, because we have clients that we talk to about baking it into the cost of the product overall and therefore allowing free shipping, but then it can really bring up the cost of the product and makes it look uncompetitive. So advice I would give is if you've got sort of quite high shipping charges, like in the example in the question around shipping perishable goods like cheese, how do you provide a premium service? So can you maybe select the day, select the time of day? Is there some elements you can do to demonstrate, well, what is the delivery? Does it come in a nice basket? Is it in a nice presentation? For our hardwood flooring company, we show photographs of the lorry actually, or the truck arriving at the house and how it gets unloaded and what the whole process is. So it makes a bit of a thing about the value of what it is that you're paying for with the shipping and the service that you're getting, the sort of truck to door, and they'll unload it aspect. So adding value if you have to charge for it and demonstrating, what it is and making it very clear that, you're not passing, someone's got to pay for the shipping, right? Whether it's bound and hidden or it's there and clear, that's something that we've tried to make clear and articulate with some of our clients that have got these very separated shipping costs.
Totally. And I think it really varies by industry too. Some shipping is astronomical and some industries really set the standard of like free shipping that's there. I think, Jennifer, you mentioned you have a couple of restaurants in your portfolio, but do you have anything to add on this?
Well, one thing I was going to say specifically about shipping is it also at this time of year becomes a great promotional element too. So you will see that it is a way to differentiate. Like if you're going to, instead of doing a substantial discount on your product, you can also offer that like a 2-day free shipping. It's one of those nudge items to get people through. Um, did you want to read me specifically the question? Apologies, Lexi, because I was sort of half reading so I could listen.
No, it's okay. I think the question just centered around e-commerce within the food industry and perishable food shipping. Is there anything you keep in mind as you approach those topics?
So we actually did a webinar last year for all these food-based businesses here in Rhode Island. And interesting, one of the things that we make sure that if you're running a perishable food business, right now, you should be putting out really clearly on your website all the drop dates. So everyone knows when everything has and can. And Christmas, whether you celebrate it, that's your major holiday, but it's on a Monday. So you have no, very rare day before. I know there will be some of that here in the States. I'm not sure if in the UK they'll drop on a Sunday, but Sunday is going to be much more expensive. So I think for perishable foods, we have to be really clear and upfront about what those drop deadlines are. You also want to be really clear about if they have to be home or not to receive things. Again, different parts of the country, be very clear and upfront, put it right in the product purchase, like as they're buying, but also don't forget on the checkout page to remind people of things that relate to food, because I think they always have to remember little things like this comes with dry ice or certain things along those lines, so that the consumer expectation is really, really clear. And then as strange as I would also require opting in for SMS for food-based products, not just email, because when you're shipping, you do want them to be mindful of like exactly when they're going to get certain things, especially food.
Yeah, I think you both nailed it. I think, James, you talked about transparency, and transparency in the cost is extremely important. I also think it's really impactful to just be transparent about why it's costing your organization so much to ship it. Have a shipping page that explains that they can read when they're going, oh my, why is this block of cheese this much shipping? And you can explain it thoroughly. I think that's key. And if you do that just transparently, it goes a long ways. We have a lot of clients where, like James, we have to ship on pallets, and they're asking, why is this $100+ shipping cost here? And we have a page there that explains it, and that helps a lot of people understand exactly why it's happening.
Totally. I also think sustainability, less in the US, but it's becoming more important, very much so in the UK and in the EU, also matters with shipping. And when you're shipping large items or even like perishable items, like those boxes and the dried ice and all the stuff that comes with it is a lot. So I think companies are putting a sustainable note on that a lot of times, saying like, this is all recyclable or things like that. So Josh, I think I'll pass to you and you can hit us home with our final question.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a fantastic and fascinating to hear some of these insights, especially around even things like the food-based industry. I think that's been awesome to hear your thought processes there. And to your point, just it's easy to like try to almost trick people into getting to that last step. You see these like black hat marketing tricks, and people try to get them to the last step, and then it just turns them off. By the end, they're not going to come back to you after that. So you might get an extra click, but you might lose somebody for the long haul with those kinds of things. So over communicate. I love that. I guess for my last question, it would just be, is there something that you're doing different in 2023 than you did in 2022? Is there something that's shifted that from your learnings maybe in years past that you're trying to approach differently this year? And I think we can go around the horn with this one, but we only have, you know, a minute or two each for this one. And let's start with Max this time.
Yeah, sure. So obviously everyone's talking about AI and leveraging some of the new technologies is really what I see big in 2024. So finding a way to leverage AI in particular to customize the experience, particularly with the e-commerce. So whether it's actually customizing the content on the page to improve the user experience, or creating a chat bot that can answer questions that's much more human for the user, that addresses all their questions and empathy points before they buy a product. Like finding ways to incorporate AI technologies to better customize websites and better enhance the user experience to help differentiate. That's about as succinct as I can get it, knowing we only have a few minutes left.
Awesome. Jennifer, you want to take that one next?
Sure. So one thing that I'm trying to get so many clients to understand is it's really time to be very clear and segmented, so that you're not sending everyone everything in the marketing materials. Make sure you're really stepping back and starting to group your customers so that they don't feel overwhelmed and then there's not opting out. So it's a simple one, but it's a very important one that you really, it's time.
James.
Yeah, I mean, Jennifer's just taken mine, so I'm going to go for my second one. Literally, I looking at my notes, it says, you know, hyper segment, don't show people things that they don't need to see. If you've already got the Lego Darth Vader bust, don't show it to me. Show me Boba Fett or something. My one, we're seeing this a lot in the UK. It started in fashion quite heavily, and this is sort of trying to get around the always having a promotion. Lots of brands are starting or are continuing to do this. New customer, get 10% off, get 5% off, give us your email address and you can have that off. Now, obviously most people these days have got more than one email address. It's very easy to get 10% off every time. We've been trialing this year with 3 brands that we work with, and the results have been phenomenal, better than we expected. And as I say, you know, I've seen it a lot in the fashion industry, but I'm starting to see it move into various other industries where there's this always on new customer offer, new customer promotion. And we've had tremendous success out of that. Because in the UK, there's the Advertising Standards Authority, and they've been hitting a few brands by always having a sale, always having reduced prices when really they're not. And the advantage of having this new customer offer is that technically it's only available for new customers to use an email address to get a code. So that's been a nice way of testing, discounting, testing promotions as an always on. That's been really quite effective for a few of our clients. So I'd urge people to have a look at that, because it's you know, it's worked really well.
Amazing. Well, with just a minute left, I'm going to close. Thank you, Max, James, Jennifer. This was a great panel. I think they are all on LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect with them. And thank you for your time, Josh. It was really fun to host this with you. And welcome to Cyber Month. Happy shopping. And I wish everyone that has an e-commerce store, whether it's your clients or it's your business, best of luck this season. And we can't wait to hear how it went.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. It was great.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.